mother was a queen. They were never meant to meet. But their love saved the world. They made me what I am. A son of the land, a king of the seas. I am the protector of the deep. I am Aquaman.
Welcome to Superhero Cinephiles Podcast. I am half of your host, Perry Constantine.
And I am the other half, Derek Ferguson.
How you doing today, Derek?
Oh, can't complain. Just a little bit sluggish because of the weather. It's been raining here for the past 2 days. It's been raining straight. We've had really funny weather. For a while, it was like almost summertime. We had about 2 or 3 weeks where it was like 60, 70 degrees. But now, like in the last week or so, it's going back toward winter.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually had snow one day last week. We had some snow. We had snow. We had some hail. Yeah.
It sucks because it was getting really warm like around last weekend, and I thought, this would be good. Like I'll probably take my sketchbook out because I've been practicing how to draw lately, and take a walk out and go to the park or something and sketch for a little bit there. But then as soon as I had that idea, it started getting cold again.
Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah. As soon as you start making plans, because usually around this time of year, I start getting my deck together, for the spring and summer. Because, my wife and I, we enjoy going out on the... Pay no attention to that. We go out there and we barbecue. We hang out on the deck. We listen to music and whatnot. So usually around this time of year, I'm getting my deck together. But I haven't been able to do that because of the weather. It's been so crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
And I finished watching Tiger King on Netflix.
Oh, man, what did you think?
That was some of the craziest shit I've ever seen.
I tell you.
I mean, but you know what? The thing that surprised me Sorry, go ahead.
The only thing I gotta add, what is it with you white people and wild animals?
You know what? I had never known. Disclaimer. We were talking before the show too, because we were talking about. I do not think I'm a regular white person because I do not understand half this shit.
Oh man, that is, and really, I just love it because if I had wrote that as fiction, nobody would publish it because they would say, "Oh man, nobody's going to believe that." I mean, you can't. There's some shit you just can't make up.
No. Ah, God. But you know what? The thing that I thought was craziest about that is
what?
Afterwards, I go on social media and I see people talking about how, Joe Exotic should be pardoned and he should be released from prison. I'm like, what? This guy's not a hero. This guy's a fucking monster. Did you guys watch? Did you guys watch the same thing I watched?
Yeah, Joe Exotic should never be let out of jail.
No, hell no. And apparently they cut out a lot of racism because he was from the documentary.
Yeah, but the funniest thing that I found was that they talked to all these different people and they asked, and everybody that they spoke to on that thing, they asked them the same question. Well, do you think that Carol killed her husband? Oh yeah, she killed him. Nobody has any doubts that she killed this cat.
Yeah, and in fact, they're apparently reopening the investigation now because of that.
Yeah, because of this. What is it? The Investigative Discovery Channel. Mm-hmm. They're going to do their own documentary and they're going to reopen the case and they're going to follow it, because they had the lawyer saying that he said that he had been doing law for 40 years. And he said he never saw a will where it was in there in the case of my death or disappearance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said, who plans on disappearing?
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know. Just everybody involved in that show is just fucking nuts. And then I saw did you see the epilogue episode with Joel McHale?
Yeah, and poor Joel McHale looked like he didn't know if he should. He didn't. It was like he didn't know which way to go with this.
Oh my God, I'm watching him, and I think even Joel McHale didn't know if he was making jokes or being serious when he asks these questions.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know when. I mean, where do you go with and this dude that's got the sex cult? You know that guy?
Oh my God! Yeah.
Oh man! And then there's the other guy in Las Vegas, and that cat is as shady as all get out.
The guy, the guy who sells drugs to fund his exotic animal habit. I mean,
that cat is shady.
Oh my God, the whole thing was just nuts.
Because nobody is quite sure where he sells drugs, but this cat has got a whole lot of other stuff going on with him. That was the impression I got.
And then there's just before we started, I was watching the Honest Trailers did one of Tiger King. And they said that, Joe Exotic is like if you play the Fallout games and you do the character selection screen and you put it on random. And that's what he comes out looking like.
Oh man, I mean that is that. Like I said, I love it because there's some stuff you just can't make up, and that definitely falls under that category of that. I was watching it and I've been around for a while. I've seen a lot of shit, but I am delighted that there are still things in this world that can make me go WTF.
Well, I am actually not delighted because I got one of those yesterday when it turns out that the fucking president is telling people to inject bleach into themselves.
Oh my God. Just when you think shit can't get any crazier, and I gotta stop saying that because it does.
You keep jinxing us, man.
Yeah, I gotta stop saying that. Oh, shit can't get any crazier than this. Yes, it does. He's going around telling people to inject. And you know what? I don't know. I was watching a documentary the other day on Turner Classic Movies. They were showing like a whole bunch of political movies, and they showed a movie about the Kennedy when him and Hubert Humphrey were running against each other. Mm-hmm. And I was watching it, and so help me, it was like watching a movie that was made on another planet. Mm-hmm. When, to see how politics was done back then as opposed to politics now.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly felt like I should be singing David Bowie's Life on Mars while I was watching this thing. Because that's honestly how I felt. Like this is something from a completely different planet from the one I'm living on.
Oh God, it's nuts these days.
You know what? And it's getting to the point now, and I didn't used to do that, but now, like, I get up and the first thing I do is I turn on the news to see what crazy shit has happened while I was asleep.
Oh yeah, and and over here when I get up, it's like nighttime for you guys, so it's all the day's news is out by that point. So I'm just like, it's like an onslaught of crazy shit as soon as I wake up in the morning.
And that's all it is. It's just crazy shit. And apparently nobody has the backbone to just, stand up and just say that, and to me, I don't understand because in the Navy, if you have a captain of the ship and he's incompetent, he proves so you can remove him from office.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can do that with the president, but apparently nobody has the backbone to try to say, something, this cat is incompetent. We need to, like,
I'm honestly surprised that there hasn't been a military coup yet.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the movies that they showed the same day I watched the documentary I was telling you about was 7 Days in May. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was thinking of. I said, well, maybe that's what we need here.
Yeah, Jesus. Oh, but on a better note, I've also been listening to Fake Doctors, Real Friends. It's a podcast hosted by Zach Braff and Donald Faison, and they're doing a rewatch of Scrubs. And each episode, they're focusing on a different episode of Scrubs, and talking about their memories of filming the episode, their experiences on the set, and all that kind of stuff. And it's really good because I didn't know this, but apparently, they're like best friends, JD and Turk on the TV show, and that's what they're like in real life too.
Oh, okay. See, I always like to hear that. I always like to hear that, guys. One of the things that always depressed me for about 10 minutes about Star Trek was when I found out that actually all the cast members, with the exception of Leonard Nimoy, they hated William Shatner.
Yeah.
But to give them their credit, they are such professionals that never comes across on screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You honestly believe that all these people, but apparently, like James Doohan refused to talk to William Shatner unless they were actually on set and they were, they had to do a scene.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, he simply wouldn't deal with the man. So, So when I hear that actors who work together and they have like this great friendship on screen, I always like to hear that, that carried over and they are actually like that in real life.
Yeah.
It's just nice.
It is.
It's just nice.
They actually mention that because they say that, they've heard about horror stories on other sets where like the actors would not talk to each other and that kind of stuff. And they said, that was never the case with Scrubs. Like we were like a big family there. Like everybody was always great to each other. Even now they still get together and, hang out and that kind of shit. So.
Oh, yeah. See, that's nice. I like that.
And in fact, it was kind of funny. Supernatural did kind of a spoof of that because, in real life, the actors, Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles, they're like best friends in real life. They were best man at each other's wedding and all that kind of stuff. And but they did an episode called, I think it was called like the French Mistake or something, or the French, where they jumped into another reality where Supernatural was a TV show.
Oh, okay.
And in the in this fictionalized version of the real world, the two actors hated each other off set and they never spoke to each other. So they kind of played funny with that. All right. So today we're talking about your pick, which is Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa.
Yep.
And so what's your association with Aquaman going into this?
My association, my association with Aquaman is in the comic books, of course, going back to, I remember reading, because unlike a lot of people, I always thought Aquaman was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I always did. And when Jim Aparo was drawing the comic book, that's what got me into it,
Okay.
The artwork, but also the stories, because Aquaman was, and a lot of people, I guess, have either forgotten this or they never knew it. But even back in the 60s and 70s, Aquaman was a pretty grim character because, his son got killed by his arch enemy. Mm-hmm. His wife left him. Atlantis has kicked him out, said, you're an incompetent king, you can't. It was some pretty grim storylines that was going on, back then. So it wasn't like, I know that now the popular joke, well, at least up until this movie, the popular joke was that, oh, well, all Aquaman does is just talk to fish.
Yeah.
But, no, it's not just that Aquaman, excuse me. It's not just that Aquaman talks to fish. There is a very important part in this movie that shows that it's not just that he talks to fish. Aquaman communicates with them, because there is a crucial part where he doesn't just beat up the big monster, to get the trident. He communicates with it.
Yeah.
And as a result, that's how he gets it, which to me is very important and says a lot about the character, which is in the other. Usually they say, well, he can command sea life and everything like that, but you never see him do that in this movie. He never commands sea life. He asks them. He communicates with them, which to me is a subtle message, but a very important one.
McSweeney's few years. This was like going back over. A while back, like over 10 years now. But McSweeney's did an article titled "Aquaman, King of the Seven Seas, has fucking had it with you, man." And it's like written in Aquaman's character, and it's just hilarious. And he says that,
Yeah, because Aquaman is kind of like a very underrated character. Like most people know him from Super Friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, if you was to ask most people, where you know Aquaman, they don't know him from the comic books. They know him from Super Friends, and that's the only version. They don't remember like the '60s, the Filmation,
right,
animated series that I do, where he was riding the honking huge giant seahorse, which I thought was as cool as all get out.
I mean, there was this one part in the article. It says, "When you were a kid, used to be cool, man. When you were a kid, you'd sit at the bottom of the Stupex pool. Remember? You used to sit there and pretend the kickboard between your knees was Storm, the giant seahorse, and you'd stand there for as long as you could, going do 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 do. You sure seem like a happy little kid."
Yeah, you did. I mean, listen. I don't know about anybody else. I thought that was cool that he had a giant seahorse.
And you know, my, because I didn't grow up with Super Friends, right? I think that was not even in reruns when I was a kid. It was on Cartoon Network, but we didn't have cable when I was growing up, so.
Okay.
But so my first association with Aquaman came from the Grant Morrison JLA run. Which, you know, and that Aquaman was fucking badass.
Yeah, well, you know what? Somebody had the sense to actually sit down and think about, okay, well, Aquaman, he's a guy that's he lives in the ocean. So in order to live at the bottom of the ocean with this tremendous depth that, you know, well, obviously his muscular and bone density must be a hell of a lot stronger than a normal human, which they figure would made him roughly equal to Wonder Woman at least.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, eventually they put Aquaman in terms of strength as being around the same level as Martian Manhunter and Wonder Woman. Yeah. Somewhere around.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is because Morrison had them pretty much on equal power footing in JLA, but I think a lot of that is probably should be credited to Peter David, who did this amazing character-defining run on the character in the early 90s.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
I was like, Peter David, any character he touches turns into like a character-defining role.
Okay, it goes back to something that you and I have talked about and something I've talked about with other writers. There's no such thing as bad character. If you are a writer of sufficient imagination and talent, you can take any character and make them bad at. I believe that 100%.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. And,
if you want to put in the work to do it.
Yeah, and he did that with Aquaman. Like, he gave him the long hair and the beard. He gave him talking about how dark and the comics were at some points. It was, I can't remember what the villain was, but put his hand in a fucking pool of piranha and they ate off his hand, and then he had to replace it with a hook.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, people only know Aquaman from from Super Friends, but in the comic books, Aquaman was a pretty dark character.
Yeah. So I was really surprised, actually, when everyone's doing these Aquaman jokes and stuff. And I'm like, but what are you guys talking about? Aquaman's badass.
Yeah. Yeah, he is no joke. And I mean, in this movie, we had a little glimpse of him in Justice League.
Yeah.
But, this movie is all by himself. And, Jason Momoa, who is one of those actors that I always felt was looking in search of the right character. He did a Conan movie.
Right. And
he was a good Conan, but it was a terrible movie.
Right. That was the problem. I thought he was great in that movie, but it was just the movie itself was not very good.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, and I know people are going to say it's sacrilegious, but actually seeing him as Conan, he looked more like Conan in my imagination than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, when I visualize Conan, I see him as looking more like Jason Momoa.
Yeah, and he was great in Game of Thrones, too, when he played Khal Drogo.
Yeah, but it was like he could never find that breakout character for him until Aquaman came along.
And, part of me is a little disappointed that he played Aquaman because he would also have made an awesome Lobo.
Yeah, well, okay. Was it at one time there was talk that he was going to play Lobo?
I don't know. I think there may have been. But I don't know. For whatever reason, it just didn't happen, which is kind of disappointing because he looks like Lobo.
Yes, he does. He looks just like him. Yeah.
But I gotta say, and when they first released, because it was for, I believe it was for Batman v Superman. They released the first promo picture of him as Aquaman, and I remember people being like, "Oh, look, they're trying to be edgy with Aquaman now." I'm like, "No, that is Aquaman from the comics."
Yeah, that is Aquaman. That's how he's been. But again, people, like I said, most people, if you ask most people where they know Aquaman from, they know him from Super Friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't know him from the Peter David, they don't know that run.
Yeah.
They don't know Grant Morrison, they don't know that. You ask the average person, matter of fact, here's a funny thing I want to bring up. When I went to see this movie in theater, of course, I dragged Patricia to see it, and I'm in the lobby, and I'm standing out there, and I like to eavesdrop on people as they're coming out to get their impression of what they thought of the movie. And that a lot of people thought that this was a Marvel movie.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because, and yeah, you know what? Let's face it. In tone, in style, in look, this is a lot closer to, say, like Black Panther or Thor than any other DC movie that came before it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this was like the big shift, because you started to see it with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But Wonder Woman still had kind of those Snyderisms in it, like especially in the third act. Whereas this one, it just totally wears its heart on its sleeve, and it just lets you know that, we're really committed to this character, to this movie, and we don't care how ridiculous this all seems.
Exactly, which is the kind of tone that Marvel movies take. We don't care how ridiculous it is. We're committed to this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they never explain why the Atlanteans could talk underwater. They just said, listen, they can talk underwater, to hell with it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, remember in Justice League, there was that weird thing where Mera creates like an air pocket or something for them to talk in?
Exactly. She had to create an air pocket for them to talk.
Yeah, and everybody was like, why are you going to so much trouble to try and explain this? And then James Wan immediately came out and he said, no, we're not doing that shit in my movie.
Yeah. Which, and you know what? I have to admit, I only know James Wan from, I know he's directed a bunch of horror movies, the Insidious movies, which Patrick Wilson, who's in this movie, he's in those movies, I believe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he uses, him and Patrick Wilson are best friends, I think, because he's in every one of his movies.
Oh, okay. Because I've never seen any of these. Matter of fact, the only James Wan movie I think I've seen is Saw and Furious 7. Now, based on those two movies, I would never suspect that he had this type of movie in him.
Right.
Because this movie has got the confidence of a Steven Spielberg or of James Gunn or one of those guys that are used to these big mega budget, huge CGI spectaculars. The confidence with which this movie is directed is, mind-boggling to me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's clear that James Wan's a fan. It's that you can tell there's a love for this character coming through on screen, which is not present in some of the other DC movies. That's not definitely not in Man of Steel or Batman v Superman. It's definitely not in Suicide Squad, but it is present in Wonder Woman. It is present in this. Yeah,
you can definitely tell that he loves the story. He loves the character. Whereas, like you said, in those other movies, it's especially in Batman versus Superman and in Man of Steel, especially Man of Steel, there's almost a contempt, for the character.
Yeah. And and it would be so easy to do that with Aquaman, with the decade, 2 decades now of bad stand-up routines about how lame Aquaman is. It would be so easy to go that route, but they don't. They keep it real. They keep it serious.
Yeah, and I mean, no matter how goofy this thing gets with this whole underwater civilization, and then in the third act, it takes a swing in the Lovecraftian horror. It's this movie just doesn't stop, giving us surprises one after the other. It gives us Black Manta, a black supervillain, and that was one of the things also about the comic books. from the 60s when Black Manta finally revealed himself, and he was black, and he takes off his helmet and he says to Aquaman, well, what, you think I just was Black Manta just for the fun of it? No, I'm black. He was one of the first great black supervillains that we had,
and played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II from who was Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen.
Right, who we raved about when we did the Watchmen thing. This is where, at least I saw him first, this first. And you know what? He commits to Black Manta, we actually feel his pain because Aquaman, in the best tradition of most superheroes, he's responsible for creating his own archenemy.
Yeah. And in fact, that's one of the things I really liked about this movie is that consequence that comes back to haunt him, because he's, he leaves Black Manta's father to die, and he's reckless about it, and he says, ask the sea for mercy. And then Black Manta comes back after him because of that. And he acknowledges the fact that, I did this to him. Like, I can understand why he's coming after me. I really like that sense of, there's a consequence for killing for a superhero.
Oh, okay, but, and I've had this discussion with other people, and this has been a point of contention with a lot of people who feel that, oh, well, he's supposed to be a superhero. He's not supposed to leave anybody to die. Yeah, but these guys just ruthlessly murdered a whole bunch of people on board this submarine who were just minding their business.
Right. I mean, you can totally understand why. That's what I love about it, too, because it's not black and white, right? It's not like he's, this isn't like, the Punisher blowing people away. This is a situation where, okay, yeah, I can see why you'd leave him to die.
Yeah, and also, let's not forget, he was trying to kill Aquaman while, he was trying to kill him, and that's what caused the torpedo to fall on him.
Right.
So he kind of like brought it on, which is what I took away from it. The Aquaman was saying, well, look, you brought this on yourself. So, you got to deal with it, So, I mean, right or wrong, who knows? But I do agree with what you're saying, that I like how he did take responsibility for it and say, yeah, you know what? I did that to the guy.
But see, like, that's the thing. That's why it makes it so good, I think, because the fact that, you can understand why he left them to die. It's not that he wasn't necessarily wrong, but he still takes that lesson from it. Like, that's a mark of a hero, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, he didn't do it out of spite, or he didn't do it out of maliciousness,
right?
Anything like that. But, you say, well, listen, you came aboard here and you slaughtered up a bunch of people that were minding their business, So, you got to take, what fate has dealt you.
Yeah.
But you know what? It is a good bit of characterization among a whole lot of characterization in this movie of Aquaman, because while he comes across as being like this big, dumb, goofy guy, we see that there are other things that are going on inside of him, that he does feel some kind of responsibility that I don't think he was able to exercise until Mira comes along and takes him to Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, and he proves that he's really intelligent himself. Like when he goes in the submarine, he's speaking like fluent Russian to the guys, and then when they're in Italy, and he says, Pops made sure I knew my history.
Yeah, he is a smart guy, even though I think that he likes to give the impression he's kind of big and dumb and goofy, which I think he expects people, they see him as. But right. And know what else I liked about that scene when he goes into the sub and he goes in there and he opens up the door, and like you say, he speaks fluent Russian. Mm-hmm. And when a Russian says, oh, thank God we're safe, it's Aquaman, we don't go through this usual thing like, oh my God, who are you? Right. Everybody knows who Aquaman is.
Yeah.
He's the guy said, oh man, Aquaman, thank you. He said, yeah, okay, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm missing happy hour.
Yeah, right. He said, yeah, I'm missing happy hour. Let's go.
And but talking about
usually we get that scene where people are saying, oh my God, who are you? People know who he is.
Yeah. There's no I'm Aquaman moment like that in this, at least not in that way. But one of the things I also, talking about the characterization, so Aquaman in the comics, like we said, he was very much more of a grim type of character, very much kind of a serious character. Like, not quite like Batman level, but he's much more he's much more serious than like a lot of the other Justice League, and also a bit temperamental at times. But what I liked in this one, this may be my favorite take on Aquaman. I love Jason Momoa's Surfer Bro Aquaman.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I like it, which I think has always been the hardest thing about Aquaman, that writers have never got a handle on his personality. Like in the Brave and Bold, I know you said you've never seen it.
No, but I've heard about this, and I've seen clips, and it's just like salty dog Aquaman type of thing.
No, it's Hercules.
Oh, okay.
You know, from Marvel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Basically, they took they took Hercules' personality from Marvel and gave it to the animated, Aquaman. So we got a different take on him there. There was a period back in the 60s in the Aquaman comic books when you talk about Batman, where he basically was like Batman underwater. He had an aqua cave. He had an aqua signal. He his butler was an octopus. Seriously. So no, everybody. There are a whole lot of different versions. I can't say that word.
Iterations.
Versions of what?
Iterations.
There you go. I'll stick with versions. There's a whole lot of versions to Aquaman. But I felt that with this Surfer Bro, I think Jason Momoa had a lot to do with that he created a persona that he could feel comfortable with.
Right. Well,
and it works for this movie. It works.
Because they did a Surfer Bro Aquaman when he was on Smallville, but he just kind of came off as like kind of a dumb frat boy in that, and it didn't really work. But him in this, like, it works with the way Momoa does it. I don't know, something about Momoa's personality, it just kind of like shines through in this character. Yeah.
That's why I think that a lot of that is him.
Yeah.
I think he had a lot of input into this version of Aquaman.
Right.
And it works. I mean, listen, it worked for me. I sat there and I said, and actually I was honestly surprised at how much I was enjoying the movie the first time I saw it. And I watched it earlier today, and it was like I was watching it again for the first time. And matter of fact, I was watching even closer because the detail in this movie is so extraordinary that, there was stuff I know I didn't see the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow. I said, was that there before? But then I noticed that usually when I get home and I watch a movie on Blu-ray, there's a lot of more stuff that I see that I didn't see when I went to the theater, when I saw it in the theater. Now, I don't know if that's because of the picture quality of the Blu-ray or whatever. I have no idea, but it is what it is. I was just seeing a lot of stuff I didn't see before.
Well, something you said, watch how much you found yourself enjoying it even the second time around. I had that kind of same feeling because I've seen this movie like maybe 3 times or so now, 3 or 4 times. And you watch these movies again and again and again, and eventually you get to a point where it's like, oh yeah, I'll put it on. I kind of like do other stuff. Like, this is one of those movies that I forget how good it is until I watch it again. And then when I watch it again, I'm like, damn, this is a good movie.
Bingo. See, because that's what I thought I was going to do. I said, well, you know what? I'll put it on and I'll just have, and I'll put it around and I'll do other stuff, while it's on, and I'll just, because I just wanted to refresh my memory.
Right.
I think after about by the time we get to the scene where Mira first comes out of the water, I was engrossed. I was sitting watching like I'd never seen it before.
Same here. And you know what really stood out to me this time in that scene is when the tidal wave is coming towards them and it seems like it's moving in slow motion. That is such a realistic depiction of how that really feels when you watch something like that happen, because it does feel like it's happening in slow motion. So I thought that was a really good touch that they did. And it's something I never noticed before, but it jumped out at me this time.
Yeah, and I mean, just like you said, I mean, it took me about 30 minutes, and forget about it. I was engrossed. Really, I was saying the same thing. I had forgotten how good this was, how good this movie actually is.
And what I also noticed this time is that this movie plays against a lot of conventions that you would expect from a superhero movie, like the scene when he's in the bar, right, and the guy and the biker guys come up to him and they're like, "Hey, you're that fish guy, right?" And then and it looks like they're about to and it looks like they're going to pick a fight with him. And then the guy takes out a phone, which has a pink case, no less. And he says, can we get a picture with you? You're a local hero.
But again, I like that because, Aquaman is kind of like a public hero. I mean, like, everybody knows who he is. It's not like everybody's saying, oh, well, there's this mythical fish man that's going around. No, they know that there's a guy that can, breathe underwater, going around, rescuing ships and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They know him.
Yeah. And I thought that was great, just like that moment. And then even he all right, fine. And like the first picture, he looks like he doesn't want to be there. But in the other pictures, he's like getting into it.
Yeah, as they buy more and more beers, apparently, because there's one where they're picking them up, they're holding them up, and he's...
But I love that. I just like little moments like that where they kind of play against type. And something else I noticed too is there's an interesting racial contrast in this movie, right? Because it's different, and they flip it from the comics. Because in the comics, Aquaman is very Aryan type, right? Like blonde hair, blue eyes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, blonde hair, blue eye, yeah.
And Ocean Master is like the he's like part Inuit, I think, or something like that. And so he's the one who's like the minority character in this. But in this movie, they flip it, right? So here, Aquaman is Polynesian, or half Polynesian, because Jason Momoa is. But then you got Ocean Master, and you've got him as the blonde-haired, blue-eyed type.
Yeah. The Aryan-looking guy is the bad guy in this one. Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice little twist they did. And also, that was intentional because Patrick Wilson is a brunette in real life, but here he's blonde.
Oh, yeah, very blonde. Mm-hmm. Very blonde. Which is, but I liked that there's an ethnic look to Aquaman.
Yeah, same here.
I liked that they went that way. With them, and they didn't go for, like you said, the traditional comic book, look. I also love that his father was played by one of my favorite actors, Tamura Morrison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was great in this.
Yeah, you know what? That's a guy, and people don't realize how long he's been around. This guy's been acting, I remember seeing him back in the 1980s acting. He's been around for a long time, so I was really delighted to see him show up, and I see that they used that de-aging technology on him and Nicole Kidman in the beginning when we first see them when they're younger.
And also, speaking of, Nicole Kidman was great in this too. So, in fact, the first time I saw this, I didn't realize it was her. Like, I knew I'd recognize her. I'm like, who? And then later when I found out it was Nicole Kidman, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you know what? The first time we saw it, we're sitting there, and my wife is saying, she leans over, she whispers to me, she said, "Is that Nicole Kidman?" I said, "I'm not sure. Hold on a minute." And then later on, when she's pregnant and she's got her hair down, I said, "Oh yeah, that is Nicole Kidman." Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's her. When she was wearing the Atlantean suit, I wasn't too sure if that was her. I said, "Looks kind of like her," but then later on, after she has the baby and she's got the long blonde hair, and I said, "Yeah, okay, that's her." But I mean, she has a small but pivotal role in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, And I'm glad that they went with the original version where he is half Atlantean, half human, because I remember in the post-crisis world he was like I believe he was full Atlantean, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure about that. To me, Aquaman has always been half human, half Atlantean. That's kind of been like the shtick, because as they say repeatedly in this one, he's like the bridge between the two worlds. He is supposed to bring the surface world and the Atlantean world. He's supposed to bring them together,
which makes it all. Also is a good reason why they made the choice to make him mixed race, because that is reflected, and like Momoa was able to draw from his own experiences growing up as a mixed race kid in like Oklahoma or something like that.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Because he grew up in Hawaii or something like that.
I can't remember. I think he was born in Hawaii, but I think he grew up in like Oklahoma or the Midwest or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like they're able to draw that comparison, and it especially works when you look at the conflict between him and Ocean Master, because you've got Ocean Master is like the Aryan, like we said, he's like the full Aryan type. He's full-blooded Atlantean. But also the fact that Nicole Kidman's character, that Atlanta does not die like everyone thinks she's died, I thought was a nice touch, because this is a superhero movie where the superhero is not really defined by tragedy.
Exactly. Yeah. This isn't like a Batman or a Superman where the parents get killed and that's his motivation for, doing what he does. This character doesn't need that. He doesn't need, because it's not that. First of all, it's not that type of character.
Right. So I like that they did that. That they have
because actually Aquaman isn't okay because. Okay, now when you think about it, he's only a superhero when he's on land, because all Atlanteans have the same ability he does, except for being able to communicate with fish.
And some of them have even more abilities, like Mera with her water powers.
Right, she's got the aqua telekinesis where she can control water. Right, exactly. So actually, he really is only a superhero when he's on land.
Yeah, and then even other Atlanteans, like you've got Tempest, who's like got some sorcery powers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are all these other characters who have more powers than he does, but it's not about his powers. You're right. He is a superhero only when he's on land. That's when he becomes something different from the rest.
Right, because as we see in this movie, and I mean, him and Patrick Wilson, they have that fight, and I mean, Patrick Wilson taking just as much punishment as he is and dishing it out too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So yeah. So it's only when he's on land that he's like something special, really.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is the way that they play with kind of the structure, because most superhero movies, they would say, okay, yeah, we're going to go on the quest first, and then we'll come back and deal with Ocean Master. But he decides to try and take a shortcut, right? He's like, no, let's just fight. I'm here. Let's just fight now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, that's one thing I like about this movie is that, I love a movie that keeps me on my toes and does it, because, like you said, usually they delay the big battle to the third act.
Right.
But no, Arthur says, no, listen, I'm here. Let's go. Let's do this shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, whoa, that's a plucky, aren't we?
And then also that scene, I mean, the freaking octopus playing the drums. I love that.
Yeah, again, that was, when I saw it, I thought of the octopus from the comic books. That was his butler. I said, wow, octopus. I forget what his name was, but yeah, I said, oh, man, that is cool.
And I just like the look of Atlantis, right? Because Atlantis is one of those things where in the comics, it tends to be depicted as like kind of like this old-fashioned place. But I like what they've been doing in the same thing with like Asgard, right? But I like what they're doing in the movies as they're depicting them as these places where they do have advanced technology.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me most of. It reminded me sort of like Asgard, but underwater.
Right, yeah. It was very much that feel.
They even had kind of like a rainbow bridge.
Yeah,
kinda.
Yeah. And just like all the way they handled the technology, they had like these water-based weapons and stuff. Because you do wonder, how would they do that? How would they have guns underwater? But they find really creative ways to deal with all this. And also the whole idea of being able to breathe on land. Like I that was something I thought about. Like, well, how can Mera breathe on land when she's not half human? But you find out it's not because of Arthur's human side that he can breathe on land. It's because he's one of the high-born Atlanteans.
Right. Like the high-born Atlanteans, they can breathe on land.
Yeah. Which
because Mera, she's got royal blood too.
Yeah. And in fact, another surprise was that her father is played by Dolph Lundgren.
Who fulfills who the hell let him in this movie? Because every movie that I see, usually there is one role that I look at it and I say, well, who the hell let him or her in this movie? Yeah, every movie and then this one, when he pulls off the helmet and it's him, I said, "Holy shit, Dolph Lundgren! Who the hell let him in this movie?"
But with the beard, I didn't even recognize him. Like again, he's got his hair dyed red and everything, so I didn't recognize him until later. I read reviews and they're saying like, "Oh yeah, Dolph Lundgren." I'm like, "Who's Dolph Lundgren playing?"
Oh, he was. Oh, yeah. It was a nice surprise to him and Willem Dafoe.
Yes, yeah. Willem Dafoe is always great to see, and they used the de-aging on him too in the training scene, which I thought was a nice little touch as well.
I wrote a review of Aquaman. I said, "You have not seen anything until you see Willem Dafoe on the back of a shark with laser cannons." Yelling, "Attack the surface dwellers!"
And probably the most surprising.
Oh my god!
Most surprising of all was Julie Andrews.
Yes,
as the voice of the Karathan, or I can't remember exactly what the monster's called, but that big ass sea monster.
I just called the Leviathan.
Yeah, I mean, you got Julie Andrews to do that. I didn't even know she was still alive, actually.
Now, okay, there's an interesting story behind this because she actually turned down a role in Mary Poppins Returns to do this movie.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with her, and they said, because they got Dick Van Dyke back, and they asked her to come back, and she said, nah, she didn't want to do it. So I saw an interview with her, and they asked her, said, well, why did you turn down Mary Poppins? That's like your iconic role to do. She said, listen, look. She said, I'm an old lady. She said, they offered me the same amount of money to voice a character in Aquaman. She said, I didn't have to get up early. I didn't have to put on makeup. I didn't have to deal with special effects. She said, all I had to do was just come and sit in the booth, record my dialogue, and that's it, and go home.
Yeah, and they said that James Wan was like video conferencing in to do it. So he didn't even meet her in person for that. It was all just done on the West Coast where she lives. And you know what?
Which I can't blame her. She said, yeah, they paid me the same amount of money. She said, so why not?
Also, when asked about Mary Poppins, I thought she said something about that was really classy, I thought. And she said, like, look, that's Emily Blunt's role now. And so I'm not going to step on her toes. And I thought that was a really classy thing for her to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Sometimes, matter of fact, I was just saying this early on today because I watched... to digress just a little bit, I watched Rambo Last Blood last night. Me and my wife watched it about like 10 o'clock at night. We watched it. We said, oh, it's on Amazon Prime. Let's watch it. And I watched it. And you know what? It's not that it was a bad movie, but it was an unnecessary movie.
Right.
Sometimes you have to know when to leave shit alone. Stallone had given Rambo a perfectly good ending to his story in the previous movie where he goes back home. And we see him in that last shot. He's walking to the farmhouse.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. We did not need another Rambo movie.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to know when to leave shit alone and just say, you know what, it's enough. I done it. And that's what she did with Mary Poppins, and I applaud her for that. Like she said, listen, it's time for let somebody else have that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's disappointing. Just to continue with that digression, I was disappointed when I saw you post that about Last Blood, because I was looking forward to seeing that movie after how good Rambo was, because I thought, now that Stallone has control over the character and it's not like the studio's not begging him to do dumb sequels, that I thought it would be something like the last one, which was this really good, not only a good action movie, just a really good character movie as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. This one, and I'm not saying don't watch it, because you know what? I would have liked it better if it had not been a Rambo movie. If it had been like some other character that he was playing, and it was a straight up, revenge action movie, I would have liked it a lot better. I liked it because to me, it tainted how good the previous movie was. Because the movie, it's like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Yeah. Remember that? It ended how? With Indiana Jones riding off into the sunset. That's it. We didn't need a Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. No. That was the perfect ending for Indiana. He reconciled with his father, and he's riding off into the sunset with his father and his best friends. Yeah. And that's it. Boom. we got a perfect trilogy. No, they had to go ahead and give us a perfectly unnecessary movie that nobody asked for, nobody wanted.
Yeah.
You know, that was not received well. You know, so again, like I said, sometimes you have to know when to leave shit alone.
Well,
and
also,
just say, you know what, that's enough.
The Alien franchise did that too with because Alien, like, you know, I've said this many times. I will continue to say this many times. Alien 3 is actually a good movie, and it's a perfect ending to Ripley's story because each movie she's been defined by tragedy. So when I never understood the people who were always complaining about, well, they killed Hicks and Duke. No, it makes sense. It fits for that world. It's not a family franchise. It's a survival story.
Oh, that's the one where she kills herself, right? She jumps in the... Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. They should have left it at that.
Yeah, it was a perfect ending to the franchise. It's a good movie, especially if you watch the assembly cut, because there was a ton of studio interference. David Fincher was a first-time director in that, and when they were doing the restorations for the DVD sets, he refused to participate at all. So they couldn't do a director's cut of it. So instead, what they did was they went and they kind of like they made what was called the assembly cut from like stuff based on the original script, stuff that he had shot that wasn't in the movie, and they'd put it all in this new version, which is much better than the theatrical version we got.
Okay.
But it's a good movie, and and then it ends. It's the perfect way for Ripley's story to end, with her sacrificing herself to kill the alien once and for all. And and then they had to go and make Alien Resurrection.
Oh God.
Which I love Josh Whedon, but he made some missteps on that. But one of the things I did like about that one was it's kind of like the genesis of Firefly with the space crew he's got there.
Yeah, that's how I look at the movie. It's like he's trying out the Firefly concept, almost. Before we get to Firefly, because and I mean, and they just keep going back to the well over and over and over with that Prometheus, which I saw it, and I know a lot of people, they love that movie, and I like it. I don't love it because it's not the movie I was promised.
Yeah, and then they came out with Alien Covenant, which I don't know what the hell to say about that movie. I fell asleep during that.
Listen, my brother, if you put a gun to my head, and people ask me, oh, how come you never wrote a review of Covenant? I said, because if you put a loaded gun to my head and threatened to blow my brains, I could not explain to you what that movie was about.
No, absolutely not.
There's no way I can explain to you what that movie was about.
Okay, so
not even gonna try.
I think we digressed a lot. Going back to Aquaman, the movie we're supposed to be talking about.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're supposed to get used to it, folks. This stuff happens.
So Mara, I thought Amber Heard. That is Amber Heard, right? I thought she did a good job. Like, I'd never really cared much one way or the other about Mara in the comics, but I thought she did a really great job in making me care about this character.
I had never even really cared much about Amber Heard as an actress until this movie. I don't even remember. I'm pretty sure I've seen her in other stuff, but it didn't come. It didn't come to mind.
Right.
But I mean, she actually did bring this character to life, and she gave Mira a purpose. Like everybody always said, well, we don't want the female character to be just, like a sidekick to the male character. No, she had a definite role in this movie to play. And okay. You get the usual thing where they're bickering back and forth, and she thinks he's a clod, and he thinks that she's a little bit arrogant and prissy, but you know what, that's par for the course, and it's so entertaining watching them go back and forth that I didn't mind.
Yeah, same here. And it's kind of interesting because even though you've got Vulko in this movie and he's supposed to be kind of the mentor figure, it's really Mara who has more of a mentor figure than Vulko is, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we get Vulko in a couple of scenes where he's training Arthur when he's a boy, Like he teaches him how to swim. I love that scene where he says, "Well, I'm going to teach you how to swim." And Uncle says, "Well, I already know how to swim." Uncle says, "No, you don't."
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah. I love that. And then he does teach him how to really swim. And when he does, the author says, "Oh yeah, you're right. I didn't know how to swim before. I want to teach you how to swim like an Atlantean." So but yeah, we see a couple of scenes where he's teaching. Presumably, he taught him how to fight because we see the trick he teaches him with the with the trident,
right,
and everything like that. But it's Mira who actually instills. She's his conscience through the movie, basically, and she instills in him a sense of responsibility to his heritage.
Yeah, and she's just amazing. Something else about this movie, which we kind of touched on a little bit, was just the visuals in this film are amazing. And,
oh man, please!
And what I especially love is they don't shy away from any of the comic book stuff, right? They're like, Black Manta, are we going to have him be, just a guy in like a black suit? No, we're giving him the freaking big ass helmet.
Yeah. I said, oh my God, they gave him the helmet.
Yeah,
I loved it,
and they did the different iterations of it too. Right?
He looked like he stepped right out of the comic book.
Right. But I like that they showed the different versions he's worn in the comics. So like you see him when he's working on it, it's this one shape, and he's like, nah, not that, and then he changes it to something bigger.
And there's one point that he actually blows up the helmet, and he says, "Whoops." Oh. He said, "That's not going to work." Because he's trying to get the configuration right so that he can have the laser beams come out of the eyes.
Yeah. And I do love that, too, is like he's using his own engineering skills to repurpose Atlantean technology. And they show you, like he's not only... he's not just someone who's getting this technology from Orm. He's someone who... He takes it, and then he makes it his own.
Yeah, he refines it, and he tweaks it, and he says, "Okay, well, I can do this, I can do this." Like you said, he makes it his own, which is more interesting than him just taking Atlantean technology and say, "Okay, well, I'm going to use this again." He does use it against Aquaman, but he reconfigures it, he rejiggers it, and he comes up with something unique, which is what he wants.
Right.
He wants to make a statement.
And also, you mentioned earlier about how Aquaman's. One of the things they've done in the later comics is show like how tough he is because he has to survive in the crushing depths of the ocean. And I really like that they did a good job of portraying that. I mean, Black Manta's father shoots him with a fucking grenade, and he's just like singed.
Yeah, it's point blank. Boom. And if Aquaman has any one main superpower, is that he is tough as heck, because he gets knocked around a lot. There's that amazing fight scene that they have. They're in that plaza, and they're running through the plaza, and the Atlanteans are chasing Mira, and Black Manta is chasing him, and he gets repeatedly blasted over and over and over again. And I said, wow, he has taken a lot of punishment.
That scene was so good. And
man, that was one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen in any superhero movie right there. That fight scene that's in that plaza.
And I also just love the little humorous asides Momoa throws in. Like when they're in the deserter temple and she drains some water from his head to activate the mechanism. And he says, well, we could have just peed on it.
She just looks at him, like, oh my God. Yeah, but you know what? The guy's got a point there.
And what was it? when they're in Italy and she sees the Pinocchio storybook and she's like, "This is where you got your brilliant idea from."
But also going back to what you said about him being smart, he's the one that figures out how they have to put the bottle on the statue in order to see the location of where they got to go.
Right. Yeah, he's able to solve that riddle.
Yeah, he's the one that figures it out, okay, well, he, again, going back, I think a large part of that surfer bro persona that he presents is just to disguise the fact that he's really a very smart guy.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, they like all the technology they show in Atlantis. Like, I love that scene you mentioned before with Willem Dafoe riding the shark. But I love that they're using like sea animals like that, and you've got sharks with like armor on them and seahorses.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got armor and laser rifles, and they've got, you know, the crabs with armor, and the alligator things with, oh man, it's all, like I said, there's so much detail that's in the movie that when I saw it today, I had noticed the first time around. Like during the combat scene, I actually paused it a couple of times. I was looking, I said, wow. I said, I never noticed that before.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, you know what? They did not skimp on this movie.
No,
First
no,
of all,
not at
they
all.
did not skimp. They said, James Wan apparently said, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. And you got to give me the money to do this right.
Yeah.
Like, I loved, there's one scene where Mira, I think it's before the ritual combat that they have, and she's wearing this gown. And it's a gown that's made of, what's the thing? Oh, jellyfish.
It's got like this jellyfish on the back. It's got like these tentacles. It's like I would never have thought of something like that. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, I would never thought about. I mean, it's obvious that, you know, he said, you know what, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And again, I made the comparison to Black Panther and Thor in that this is an entire culture that we see on screen.
Yeah. And they put a lot of thought into defining that culture and what they wear, what their armor looks like, what their clothes look like. I mean, all of it. It's a brilliant bit of world building.
Yeah, you know, visually, and I usually don't like to say this about a lot of movies, but yeah, you could watch Aquaman and just get lost in the visuals.
Well, I mean, that's another thing I liked about this movie is that so much of it actually does take place underwater, right? Because normally a movie like this, it would be like the first Thor movie, which, don't get me wrong, I think that's a good movie, but they did not want to. It's clear that they were worried about being in Asgard too much, so that's why it's all mostly set in this small town.
Yeah. It wasn't until we got the second movie that we really got. Most of the movie was set in Asgard.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that was one of the weaknesses of the first Thor movie, I thought, is that there's, you know, Asgard looks so amazing, and you know, Kenneth Branagh did a great job of making you believe that place, but we don't get to spend enough time in there.
Right. Not so in this movie. You spent a lot of time. Like you said, we waste no time getting to Atlantis.
Yeah.
We have what? I think it's like the first 15 minutes of the movie is on land. But then Mira gets them, and then we go to Atlantis. It's like the next 20 minutes of the movie is in Atlantis. Then we go back to the surface world. Then we go back to Atlantis. So, you know, Yeah, and they define the different kingdoms of Atlantis, and like they give you a bit of the history of it. Like, all of this is really well thought out. I said, somebody, I don't know if it was James Wan, I don't know who it was, but somebody said, you know what, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. Mm-hmm. And they did.
And speaking of doing it right, I mean, they use Aquaman's classic costume in this. I was not expecting that at all.
No, I was not.
I mean, he gets the trident, he comes out, and it's the gold scale mail shirt and the green tights. Never in my mind. When I first saw that original promo image for of Aquaman, Jason Momoa's Aquaman, I thought to myself, you know what? You will never see this guy in the classic Aquaman costume.
Well, no, because in Justice League we didn't see him in it.
No, it was like this like heavy armor thing he was wearing.
Right. Yeah.
But here, just like with Black Manta, just like with Mera's costume, like they go full on comic book look in this, and I loved that.
And I don't know, for some reason, you know what? Okay, Aquaman's costume is gold and green. For some reason, it shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jason Momoa, being a big, muscular guy, he knows how to sell that costume because, like you said, when he shows up and he's got the trident and he shows up in the costume, he actually does look very regal in it. He looks like a king.
I never thought that costume would look so amazing.
it looks spectacular. I said, whoa. Matter of fact, when I saw it in theater, when he showed up in it, the audience went crazy.
Yeah.
They was screaming and cheering and clapping and oh, shit about to get real. Yeah, somebody just, I think it was me, but anyway. but and also that whole scene that we get with his mother and we get with the Leviathan, like I said, that's when the movie goes into that Lovecraftian angle, which actually was foreshadowed at the beginning when Arthur's father, I believe his name is Tom Curry.
Yeah.
He finds his mother and she's on the couch and there's a snow globe that's got the little lighthouse in it and it's sitting on a H.P. Lovecraft book.
Yeah.
So, and I looked and I said, wait a minute. They're showing it kind of prominently. And whenever they show something like that very prominently, I always think of Alfred Hitchcock, or somebody who said that if you show a gun in the first act, you better fire it off in the third act.
Right. Chekhov's gun.
Right. Well, in the third act, yeah, it does get fired up because the Leviathan is basically one of Lovecraft's great old gods. That Aquaman, brings, to the battle. Changes the whole tide of battle.
Yeah, and just like the way he's commanding like all the sea life at that moment, like that was just an incredible scene. Again, chalk this up to things I never thought I would see in a movie. I never thought I'd see Aquaman riding a giant sea monster as he's commanding like an army of sharks in live action.
I mean, really. How much more badass do you get than that?
Yeah.
Not only do you have a Leviathan, you're riding a Leviathan, but you've got an army of sharks. Please. That's why I'm not super villain in the movie, because I'd have gave up. Okay, never mind. Go ahead. Screw it. Take the throne, I don't care. I'm going. But nope. Not Ocean Master. Yeah.
And you know what? Something else I liked about this too is how his mother intervenes at the end, and Orm tells him, sparing my life is not our way, and he's like, well, yeah, I'm not one of you. Like, I like that he does that and he shows that compassion, and you get the sense that he doesn't hate his brother. Right? Even after everything, he believes that there's a chance for redemption, a chance for reconciliation.
Because he even says to him as they're taking him away, the last thing he says to his brother, he said, "Listen, I'm going to come see you, and we're going to talk."
Yeah.
And I like that. You know what? Not every superhero movie has to end with the bad guy getting killed.
Right. Like I like that. I think that part of that has to be credited to the Thor franchise, because that's very much the kind of relationship between Thor and Loki in the MCU movies, right? Even after everything Loki's done, Thor still wants to believe that his brother can change.
Yeah, which is one of the good things that I like about the Thor movie. I know a lot of people, they don't like the Thor movies, especially the Dark World. They don't like it. But you know what? I like it because of that relationship between, the brothers.
Oh, same here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Thor knows that Loki is going to sell him out any chance he gets, but he still will not allow himself to fully disown his brother. And he's always going to believe that there's a part of him that can be reached.
Yeah. See, Loki, I'd never cared much for him in the comics, but I love him in the movies just for that reason, because Tom Hiddleston does such a great job of towing that line that I don't think a lot of writers are really able to capture in the comics.
Back in the Kirby days, Loki was kind of just like one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It was like kill Thor, kill Odin, take over Asgard. Mm-hmm. That was it. But in the movie, it's more like he just wants to feel like he wants to feel like he's part of the family. He doesn't feel like he's part of the family.
Yeah.
And he wants to feel like he's part of the family. That's all he ever wanted, to feel like he's truly part of the family.
This reminds me. There's this meme that was going around. It shows Anthony Hopkins when he was young. It shows Tom Hiddleston. It shows Kate Blanchett, and then it shows Chris Hemsworth. And it's like all those three. Young Anthony Hopkins, Loki, and Hela, they've all got, dark hair and dark features. And then you got Thor, blonde hair, blue eyes. And it says, are we sure that Loki was really the adopted one?
I know, right? Maybe Thor was the adopted one.
But yeah, they do it, and they do have that kind of take on that, a similar type of relationship between Orm and Arthur in this that I thought was a nice touch. Even though, Orm is a bit more one-dimensional than Loki is in the movies, but and that's probably the one complaint I would probably have about this movie is that Orm doesn't really seem like, and no disrespect to Patrick Wilson, because I think he does the best he can with what he has.
Well, you know what? Patrick Wilson is a good enough actor. I think that what he did, he drew upon Shakespeare for this because he gives the character a kind of Shakespearean type of grandeur.
Yeah.
Especially when he's addressing the armies and he's trying to, stir them up to go war against the surface world and everything like that. And he's making these bombastic speeches about how a half-breed will never rule Atlantis and he's going to do this, he's going to do that. So he's a good enough actor that I think he's trying to transcend that one-dimensional quality because Orm has pretty much got only one motivation in this, and that's to make war against the surface world. For what reason, we don't know. He just feels that Atlantis should be ruling everything.
Right.
Like in the old days. Basically, that's it. So it's not like Loki who does have a multitude of little stratagems and things that he's, doing. He's a manipulator. And he basically wants to manipulate other people to do things for him. He doesn't do his own dirty work. Unlike Orm, who, he's very much a hands-on type of bad guy. You know, he does his own dirty work, which I like. I like a bad guy that does, doesn't mind doing his own dirty work.
Right. And also I did and again, just going back to how accurate this movie is, they gave Orm that Ocean Master helmet with the spikes coming out of it. That was... everything about this movie's design, and just even the way they film stuff underwater, right? How they have they move like they're underwater, right? It doesn't feel like it's just they just say they're underwater, but really it feels like they're moving in water in those scenes.
Yeah, like back in the old days, they would film people underwater, but you could tell they wasn't really underwater. Right. And they have fake bubbles and everything like that. But yeah, in this movie, you definitely do feel like they actually are underwater.
And amazing kudos to the effects guys, because they really made you believe that. And that was one of the things that everyone was worried about with this movie. How can you really film a movie like that and make you believe that they're actually underwater? And they were able to do it. I don't know how they did it, but they were able to do it.
Well, listen. They had me convinced. That's all I have to say. And again, if anybody had ever told me, I have to go back to, again, Thor and Black Panther. If anybody had ever told me that there would be an Aquaman movie this good, I'd have laughed myself into a hernia.
Oh yeah. And there was another attempt to do Aquaman, right? In the back when they were doing in the Smallville days, they had done a pilot for there was an Aquaman TV show. Yeah, called Amnesty Bay, I think it was called.
Yeah, matter of fact, I do believe it's still up on YouTube. If anybody listening wants to, go check it out. The pilot is still up there. And there was an Aquaman in Smallville, right?
But this was actually this was not the actor who played him in Smallville. It was but it was another actor from Smallville. It was Justin Hartley who played Green Arrow on Smallville.
Right.
He played Aquaman in that pilot that wasn't picked up. Did you ever see that pilot? I never saw it myself.
I saw it, but that was years ago.
Okay. Do you remember anything about it or?
Not a thing.
Okay, so I'm guessing it wasn't big loss that it ever went to series then.
Which means it couldn't have been memorable because I remember nothing about it. But like I said, I just went to see, like out of curiosity because I read something online. They said, oh well, there was an Aquaman pilot. That's all there was. Went and checked it out and I said, oh, okay. Yeah. But like I said, that was like, man, years ago. I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah, DC they made a few attempts at pilots. Like they did the Aquaman one, they did the Wonder Woman one with Adrian Palicki, and then and they also the infamous Justice League pilot.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. I've seen that.
Oh my God, that thing.
Lord have mercy.
But they finally got it right, though. Thank God with this movie, and I don't know. It's just like there's so much good in this movie, and they don't shy away from anything in it, and I don't really. Oh, one thing I did want to mention is the scene at the beginning with Atlanta when she wakes up and she sees the goldfish and she eats it.
Yeah, she eats it. Yeah,
and he comes out. He's like, "Well, I was gonna make you eggs."
Yeah, he said, "Please don't eat my dog." Yeah. Because he don't know. The guy just pulled out the water. He doesn't know what she's gonna do. But yeah, and it cannot be stressed enough how we're living in such a golden age of superhero cinema, where the technology and storytelling techniques, and not only that, but you have people who, like back in the day, people made those pilots, like we were talking about, like the Justice League pilot and stuff like that. Stuff like that was considered to be made for kids. Everybody said, well, this is like Saturday morning stuff. But now you have highly regarded filmmakers and technical people and writers and stuff like that who take this material and look upon it, as Stan Lee so many times said, this is our modern mythology.
Right.
And that's how they treat it. They treat it, this is our modern mythology.
Well, in fact, I think it was Kevin Smith he spoke to James Wan, and he asked him, he's like, he loved the fact that they kept in the comic costumes and everything, and then but he asked him, he's like, well, I'm curious though, why did you do that? Why didn't you try to like modernize them, update them? And James Wan said, he's like, those costumes are perfect. They're modern mythology. There's nothing to change.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a thing to change. And you know something? To me, that says more about a creative artist that says, you know something? I'm going to take this as it is, and I'm going to make it work, than somebody else who says, well, I'm going to totally transform the character. Well, we have to make him modern for a modern audience. Right. Because the modern audience, they won't take. And then they proceed to transmogrify the character in such a way that I sit there and I say, well, why didn't you just go and make, your own original, character?
Yeah. And then you eventually and then that ends, and then you end up getting nipples on a Batman's costume.
Yeah. If you were going to transmogrify the character this much, you might as well just went ahead and made your own original character.
Right. So yeah, and I'm glad they didn't do that. And I'm glad that DC in general has done a really, like, that's one thing that even the crappy DC movies, like, I cannot fault them for the DCU because they're staying very true to the costumes and the looks of the comics.
Yeah, which I myself appreciate.
I mean, with the exception of the exception of Joker, which I don't know what they were thinking.
Oh, please! The less said about the Joker, the better.
I mean,
I still don't know what kind of drugs they were smoking that day when they came up with that guy for Suicide Squad. Yeah, I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, like, I never understood why they felt that the Joker just being the Joker is not edgy enough. And so they had to go through and put like tattoos all over him.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, okay, and don't get me wrong, I don't mind tweaking a character here and there, okay, because it's to be expected, you tweak a character here and there, but when you change a character that radically, to me, you've created a new character.
Yeah. exactly.
Which to me, like I said, that character that's in that movie, Suicide Squad, I don't consider him. He's a Joker, but he's not the Joker.
Right. And that's something we talked about this before. That's something the MCU movies have also done really well. Is they've stayed relatively true to the comic costumes. Like they've tweaked them, but they're still relatively what you see in the comics.
Yeah. As long as I can look at the character and say, okay, well, that's Iron Man, that's Captain America, that's Scarlet Witch. That as long as I can do that, I can point at that character and I still recognize them.
Yeah,
I'm good. But once I remember there was an animated Batman series a couple of years back called The Batman.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Okay, and the character that was supposed to be the Joker, I thought he was the Creeper.
Oh, that was such a strange design. Like I know in later seasons they got such pushback on that in later seasons they made him more like the classic Joker.
Yeah, and I mean it was a perfectly good series. Matter of fact, I liked that series because it didn't focus so much on, okay, you had the Joker show up for one episode, but it kind of like focused on the villains that you don't normally see in a Batman animated show. Right. Like you didn't have like Catwoman and the Riddler and Penguin. They were mentioned, but you had like the second tier level Batman villain. But they had the Joker, and so help me, until they said it was the Joker, I said, oh, the Creeper. I saw the commercial. I saw, oh, the Creeper's going to be guest starring in it. Cool, because that's what I thought it was.
Yeah. Again,
like I said, it was such a radical design that, as far as I was concerned, that was a brand new character.
Yeah, and also they had what's his? I can't remember the name of the guy who voiced him, but it's someone that just does not. His voice does not fit the Joker at all.
Yeah.
I mean, no disrespect to that actor. He's a good actor, right?
Oh no. I mean, hey, listen, the guy needs a paycheck. Yeah. I don't fault anybody for making a paycheck. Getting a paycheck, but that design was, again, like I said, that design was just so radical that no, I didn't see the Joker that I knew in that character.
Michael Richardson, that was it.
Okay.
And he's a good actor. He's got a great voice, but that is not a Joker voice.
Yeah, he does a lot of voice work.
Yeah. And but yeah, that series, like, I remember a lot of people panned it when it came out just because it wasn't Batman the Animated Series and it wasn't Kevin Conroy. But I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen a few episodes of it and I liked it. It's its own thing, and I thought it was a neat little take on it.
Yeah, I liked it too. And you're very accurate. You hit the nail right on the head. People didn't like it for what it was. They didn't like it because it wasn't Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
And it wasn't supposed to be Batman the Animated Series, and it didn't last long. I think it lasted like maybe 2 seasons.
No, I think it went to 4 seasons.
4 seasons? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I only saw like 2 or 3. But what I did see of it, I liked it. I mean, as we said before, Batman contains multitudes. You can present them in a whole bunch of different ways, and none of them are wrong.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know. Somebody out there may have a different opinion, but even the versions I don't like, I say, okay, well, that's cool. That's just another version of Batman.
Yeah. Okay, so we're digressing again away from Aquaman. But so is there anything else? Is there anything else we have to say about Aquaman? Because I think I'm pretty much said my piece on it.
Well, listen, there's not much. Okay, what we're going to have to do is that we're going to have to start picking movies that we can pick apart ruthlessly because I have nothing bad to say about Aquaman. I really don't. It's right up there, as far as I'm concerned, with the first Captain America, the first Thor, Black Panther, Wonder Woman. Matter of fact, I will go so far as to say that this is my favorite DC superhero, live action DC superhero.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna agree with that because, It's if we're talking all DC movies, then it's hard to discount Superman the movie
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I mean, okay, yeah. If we're talking about all of them, but if we're talking about like the current
Okay. Yeah.
recent crop of, the recent crop, this is probably the best one out of them.
Yeah. You know what?
Out
You
of
know
what
what's interesting about this for me is that I put it slightly above Wonder Woman because, and here's the reason why. I think Wonder Woman overall is a better movie, but I think Aquaman is more consistently better. Right? Because Wonder Woman, it's got a great first act, a great second act, and then it kind of falls apart in the third act. But Aquaman is consistent. It's good from beginning to end. It doesn't have a third act slump.
Yeah. I would go along with that. It's consistently good all the way through.
Right.
Wonder Woman, yeah, that third act is kind of shaky.
Yeah.
It's kind of shaky, but like in terms, and something, it's one of those things that, okay, if I watch Wonder Woman, okay, well that's my favorite. I like that. Then when I watch Aquaman, okay, yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing going on.
Yeah, but I agree with that.
But again, I could watch Wonder Woman and Aquaman over and over again in a way that I can't watch like Man of Steel. Like Man of Steel, if I never see Man of Steel again, it'd be all right with me. If I never saw Batman versus Superman again, it'd be all right with me.
Yeah.
But I can see myself going back and watching Wonder Woman and Aquaman over and over again. At least, once a year, I can go back and watch them over and still enjoy them. But those other two, no. I could even watch Justice League. I like Justice League. A lot of people look at me like I've got holes in my head. But yeah, I even like Justice League. No, nowhere near as much as I like these two movies, Wonder Woman and Aquaman. But I still enjoy it.
Justice League is not bad. But no, it's broken.
Yes, it is.
That's because it's trying to please two masters is the problem with it.
It's a deeply flawed movie.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, something? It's a movie where you can see the parts working. Mm-hmm. You can see the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. Like you said, I thought Justice League, I thought especially the Whedon stuff when they brought him on and to redo the Superman stuff. The Superman in Justice League was the best Superman that we've seen in the DC movies, the modern DC movies.
Which is why I like it, because that's the best Superman we've seen.
Right?
So far.
He's funny, he's charming, he's decent, right? There's that scene where she comes back and she's like, "You smell nice," and he says, "Did I not before?"
Whereas the only thing about Batman versus if I could get a version that just had the Batman and Wonder Woman stuff, I could watch. If I could pay somebody to re-edit that movie so it's just Batman and Wonder Woman, I could watch it.
Yeah, I wonder if someone could do that with Iron Man 3 and edit out the stuff with the Mandarin reveal. Because that was my biggest sticking point, and just it was a bit too goofy in places, I thought. Oh, and also everything with that little kid. I hated that little kid.
Because anything that has to do with Superman in that movie, and Lex Luthor, I can't stand.
Yeah, same here.
When it's Batman and Wonder Woman, it's a terrific movie.
Yeah, but yeah, Justice League did have its moments. I loved Aquaman in that. I liked Batman a lot more. And I thought Ben Affleck did a much better job. He wasn't as grim Batman as he was in BVS. You had him, making jokes when he's talking to Aquaman. He says "What, can you really talk to fish?"
Yeah.
And then when he says then when he picks up the Flash and Flash is like, "Well, what's your superpower?" He's like, "I'm rich."
I'm rich. Yeah. What other superpower do I need? And one of my favorite scenes is when he's talking to Jeremy Irons, who plays Alfred, and they're reminiscing. And, Alfred said, "Don't you miss the days when all we had to deal with was, penguins that fire rockets and stuff like that?" Yeah, which, and then, it hit me. And then I said, something? Yeah, I could see this as being the Michael Keaton and Michael Gouge Batman and Alfred 20 years, down the, I said, okay, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But I like that. It's a little thing, but it's usually those little things that make me smile.
Right.
And I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, so yeah. And like the only character I really had a problem with in that movie was the Flash. But other than that, I thought all the rest of the Justice League, like a lot of people didn't like Cyborg, but I thought Cyborg was fine in that movie.
I'm with you. I like everybody except for because to me that wasn't Barry Allen. That was Impulse.
Exactly.
That's Impulse.
Well, it's the same thing in like the X-Men movies when they had Quicksilver in there. Like that wasn't Quicksilver to me. That was Impulse.
Yeah, that was Impulse. Yeah, that wasn't Quicksilver.
Whereas in
exactly,
and it sucks that he didn't get more movies, but Aaron Taylor Johnson in Age of Ultron, he was Quicksilver from the comic books.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, exactly. That was Quicksilver.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's about all we have to say about Aquaman. I mean, basically, sum up. If you haven't watched this movie, I don't know what's wrong with you because it's amazing.
I have no idea what's wrong. If you have not seen Aquaman by now, it's only because you don't want to see it. Mm-hmm. But take it from me, you're really missing out if you've never seen Aquaman. And of course,
also I forgot to mention, but we've got Randall Park has a small part in this movie too as Dr. Shin.
Yeah,
I love Randall Park and everything. I've loved him ever since I saw him in what's that TV show? Fresh Off the Boat. Like he's just he's great in like everything he does. Like I love him in the Ant-Man movies when he plays Jimmy Woo. I love him. And he was in that movie, that Netflix movie with Ali Wong. He was great in that too. Like he's a really underrated comedic actor, I think.
Because they kind of set him up that he's going to play a bigger role in the sequel because he finds Black Manta after the fight. We have like one of those little which is why I guess a lot of people thought that this was a Marvel movie because we had the scene that came after the credits,
right,
where we see that the doctor, because he's like a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. And he finds Black Manta and he bandages him up and everything like that, and they make a deal. You know. So obviously they're setting him up for a bigger role for the sequel. Yeah,
I mean, Abdul Mateen, he said that Black Manta is going to play a bigger role in the sequel, and that's one of the things that this movie, they threw everything in this movie, so it left me wondering afterwards. I'm like, well, what are they going to do for a sequel now?
But you know what? Again, I'm glad that they did not kill off the bad guys because not every superhero. It doesn't have to be a thing where they kill the bad guy that's at the end. Oh, because all the bad guys are still left alive at the end of the movie.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, all the bad guys are left alive. So that so they'll come back. That was the problem that they had with the Batman movies. Remember, they kept killing off the bad guys.
Right. Yeah. And some of the Marvel movies have made that mistake too. Like they killed off, they seemed to kill off the Red Skull, and then we found out he's back in Endgame in a way. They destroyed Ultron, huh?
Claw. They killed off Claw.
Yeah, that was the biggest mistake. Claw.
Yeah, that's like the Black Panther's arch. First of all, you never kill off superheroes' arch nemesis. You don't. That's like. Luthor should never get killed. The Joker should never get killed. You always got to have the arch enemy to be the yin to the hero's yang.
Right.
So yeah. So me, I was pleased to see that Black Manta was still alive.
Yeah.
At the end of this movie. But I think that's why a lot of people thought that this was a Marvel movie. Because I had people that were saying, oh, how come Iron Man wasn't in this movie? Usually he shows up in it. I said, well, because it wasn't a Marvel movie. Because it's a funny thing. A lot of people, of course, you and I, we know this comic book stuff probably better than any human being should. But the average person, they think all superhero movies are Marvel movies.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They do. I've talked to people that say, oh, well, where was Nick Fury? Usually he shows up in these movies. I said, well, it's DC. And they said, DC, well, what are you talking about? And then I got to explain to them. And they look at me and they said, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people really don't know that. So, but again, like I said, this movie comes the closest to being a Marvel movie than a DC movie. If I didn't know any of the history about Aquaman, I probably would have thought this was a Marvel movie.
Yeah,
I would have.
And thank God that Warner Brothers did not force James Wan to try to imitate Zack Snyder. I think by this point they had kind of learned their lesson on that.
Yeah. As we, and really, I think that that's the best way to go. Just let, each director have his own style and, find his own way of how to do, to do whatever movie he's doing, rather than try to, ape, Zack Snyder. That's because that's not working for them.
Right, and that was the weakness in the third act of Wonder Woman. Like that third act is a very Zack Snyder-esque act.
Yeah,
and they didn't seem to do that with this one. And also in Shazam as well, and Birds of Prey now, they've let the directors kind of chart their own path.
Yeah. Birds of Prey was good too. Birds of Prey, this one and Wonder Woman. I think that's the way for them to go. Just give the property to a director that you trust and just say, okay, listen, just go nuts.
Right.
Have fun.
Yeah, because they like we've said before, like we said in the last episode, DC's already they're doing a great job with the shared universe stuff on TV, so there's no reason for the movies to try to imitate it as well.
Yeah, we've already established that Aquaman is in the same universe with Batman and Superman or whatever. Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to shoehorn them into every movie that he's in. You just will. And I think that this movie greatly benefited from, because we don't even hear any mention of, Superman or Batman or anything like that.
No, there's just the only reference to anything in the larger DC universe is when Mara first arrives and she mentions Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf, exactly, yes. And that's only to let us know that, okay, this takes place after Justice League.
Right, yeah. But other than that, they don't say anything. They don't really mention anyone else.
Yeah, which is, I think, which is the way to go to me,
Exactly. I agree.
Let's have this movie. Let's establish Aquaman in his world. And then maybe in the second one, maybe we can have a mention of, Wonder Woman or Batman or whoever.
Right.
And it's all good.
And now, one thing I wanted to touch on before we go is something you posted up on Facebook right before we started, was asking how would Marvel do Namor now?
Yeah, because I was watching it today. I was watching the movie today, like you said, like I said, because I usually watch these movies before, we record to refresh my memory. Mm-hmm. And it just struck me. I said, oh, shit. I said, wait a minute. Okay, could Marvel do a Submariner? Because this movie is so popular. Uh-huh. It made so much money. So many people. Matter of fact, I can't think of anybody I know who has seen it who didn't like it. Mm-hmm. So it's so popular. So now I'm wondering if Marvel could do a Submariner movie, or would it just be looked upon as a knockoff of Aquaman?
I think they would have. Well, first, there's a rights issue with this because I think it's similar to the situation with Hulk, whereas if Marvel makes a Submariner movie, Universal has to release it, something like that. I don't know exactly all the details. Nobody really knows all the details of it because
nobody really knows the details about exactly. Although I've heard the same thing that you have, that Universal is apparently holding on to the rights with a death grip.
Yeah, and apparently, in an interview, like this is like going back several years, but Joe Quesada was asked about a Submariner movie, and he said that the rights issue with Universal is actually very complicated. So I'm not sure like how complicated. So whatever the situation is, like they got to untangle that whole mess first. But assuming they got that all out of the way, I think the best thing to do about Submariner is you want to make them as different from Aquaman as possible, because they're so similar in abilities and also just, they're both Atlantean kings. They're both half humans.
Right.
So
see, that's my whole thing,
So I think what you should do is you go with the 1960s revival of Submariner, right? When he's revived in the modern day after being like amnesiac for like the better part of the 20th century. So you have like the World War II history. Maybe you can get Chris Evans to come back in to do a cameo as Captain America. But you have the World War II history. You have him, falling into decline, becoming a vagrant on the streets, and then he's revived and he gets his memories back, but he goes to Atlantis and he finds out that it's been destroyed by pollution. And then he attacks the surface world. So I would start him off on the villain path and make him like a villain in some movies. In fact, there's been speculation that because there's that reference in Endgame when oh crap, what's her name? The Dora Milaje from Black
I know
Panther.
you're talking about.
Okay, I'm blanking on her character's name right now.
That's all right. It's a lot of people who remember.
Yeah, but anyway, when she says that, there's an earthquake under the ocean, and she says we handle it by not handling it. Right? A lot of people have said that could be a reference to Atlantis and Namor. And there's been a lot of speculation. Like, I don't know how much of it is based on rumor, how much is based on fact, but there's been a lot of speculation that Namor will be the villain in Black Panther 2.
Interesting theory. Actually, the way that I would probably go to introduce Namor, I would do an Invaders movie. I'd get Chris Evans back to play Captain America. Mm-hmm. And do an Invaders movie to introduce Namor and the Human Torch, and then you can spin him off into his own movie.
Yeah,
like establish his history as well. Although I'm like you, I like the Namor from the 1960s when he was a supervillain, and twice a year he would just go invade the surface world just to scare the shit out of it. he would invade New York just for the fun of it. He said, get the troops. We're gonna go invade New York. Why? What the hell? Just scare the shit out of him. Namor would go invade New York, take it over, go to the UN, just sit there, then get up, and then he would leave.
I don't know if you could do Invaders for two reasons. First off, I don't know if I think you'd probably get Chris Evans to come back in a cameo. I don't know if you could get him to come back for a whole movie. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I don't know if they would want to do the Jim Hammond Human Torch because now that they have the Fantastic Four rights, I don't know if they'd want to confuse that with the Johnny Storm Human Torch. So I think if they do, and I would love, me, I love Jim Hammond, but
oh man, I love the Jim Hammond Human Torch. Yeah.
One of the things they did in some of the more recent comics is, you remember that suit that Cap wore in Winter Soldier, the shield outfit with the star on the chest? So that was a variation on a suit he wore in the comic books when he was running Shield. And except he just didn't have the mask with him. And then when they brought Jim Hammond back, because he had died, he'd come back to life. They kill him off like every few years or something.
Yeah. But he's an android.
He's an android. Yes. So they brought him back, and they gave him a very similar suit to the one that Cap wore, except it was red and yellow, and instead of the star in the center of the chest, it had the flame. So I think, so I think you would probably do something like that, and maybe not call him the Torch. And just never have him go completely flame on.
Because I had written a fan fiction story for Marvel Omega, with the Human Torch, because I love the Jim Hammond Human Torch. And my thing was that when I wrote the story, I said, okay, well, how do I distinguish him and make him, distinguish him from the Johnny Storm Human Torch? And to my mind, he was like the Superman of the Marvel Universe. Right. In that he was like one of the first superhumans. He was this artificial life form and everything like that. So I said, well, you know what? He's kind of like the Superman of the MCU.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really good take on him. I remember.
That he ushered in that heroic age. He was the first. That's how I looked upon him, because I love the character. I really do.
Yeah, he's a great character, and I wish he would get some more play. I mean, I know fortunately, every time they've tried to do an Invaders revival book, and they've been pretty good. They've been pretty good attempts. It just never really catches on. But in each one, Jim Hammond has always been at the center of these revivals, and I've always thought that was a good thing they did.
Yeah, because I got so excited when I saw Captain America, the first movie, and you see the tube and you see him in there. It's, oh my God, that's him. The Human Torch.
Yeah. And I was expecting there to be some reference in Age of Ultron with the Vision. Like, I thought they were going to say, like, well, this was a android body that's been repurposed or something like that. And they would bring back that body from First Avenger. But so I was a little disappointed they didn't do that.
Yeah. I thought that if you had Ultron and you had the Vision, I said, okay, well, they're going to bring the Human Torch in here some kind of way.
Right.
But they didn't, so, But then again, listen, maybe his body is laying in a crypt someplace like that, and we'll see him in an upcoming MCU movie. Maybe he'll get reactivated. But then going back to what you said, they might not want to confuse people since they do got the rights to the Fantastic Four back.
Yeah. So I mean, I would love to see him in some way if they were able to bring him back. Or, I remember in the 90s, right, when John Byrne did a Namor series, I think it was John Byrne, and he had Namor running his own company. Yeah. And then eventually Jim Hammond ended up running the company too. He ended up taking it over. Yeah. So that would be an interesting take too, and that would also kind of set Namor apart from Aquaman. But I would probably avoid a lot of Atlantis stuff with a Namor movie because, with Aquaman, it's so central to his character that he's the king of Atlantis. But with Namor, he spends so much time out of Atlantis. There's been many, many comics where he's been like banned from Atlantis or like exiled or Atlantis like gone. So you don't really need Atlantis to do. So I would have Atlantis have been destroyed by the surface world.
Yeah, because Namor spent just as much time being exiled and banned and, whatever, because I think that, what's his name? Who was it? It was his advisor that ran Atlantis most of the time.
Right, yeah. So you don't really need Atlantis for Namor. Just have the Atlanteans like kind of scattered about, and that would help set it apart, I think.
Good, okay. Good take.
Well, like we said last week, why aren't we writing these stuff?
I have no idea why. Listen, I work cheap. They can pay me half the money they paying these guys. Yeah, I'd be happy.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up our episode on Aquaman, and this was your pick this week. So now it's thrown back to me. So I think next week what I want to watch is a movie that I've been kind of threatening to pick, and that is the original live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990. Okay. I think it was. So that'll be interesting because you don't have much familiarity with the Turtles, right?
No, but something? I actually did go see this in the theater. Oh, okay. I saw this in the theater. I did go see it. I'm kind of interested in seeing it again because I don't believe I've seen it since then, and that's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I remember I went to see. But you got to remember, some movies were a lot cheaper back then. Right. So it was one day after work. Like a bunch of us, that was on the job. We said, let's go see this movie. So we designed. Matter of fact, I saw this and I saw the sequel. I saw that as well in the theater. The one with Vanilla Ice. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. The infamous one with Vanilla Ice.
Oh man.
So I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing this again because I haven't seen it in a while.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so join us next week. We'll watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original 1990 movie, and that about does it for us for this week. Head on over to Facebook. Superhero Cinephiles is the name of our Facebook group. Join in. I post some polls up there every now and then. Derek will share his movie reviews. Other people come in and post stuff up. Or follow us on Twitter, Super Cinema Pod. Same on Instagram, also Super Cinema Pod. And leave us a review on iTunes. Toss us some bucks through Patreon, patreon.com, Super Cinema Pod as well. And we will come back and we will see you next week.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening. And as always, good night and God bless.
Yep, and wash your hands.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. you have any questions or comments about this or any other episode, or if you have a superhero movie or TV show you'd like us to cover in a future episode, you can email us at superherocinephiles@gmail.com, or you can also visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com. If you like what you hear, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Each review helps us reach more potential listeners. You can also support the show by renting or purchasing the movies discussed, or by picking up our books, all of which can be accessed through the website, as well as find links to our social media presences. The theme music for this show is a shortened version of Superhero Showdown, a royalty-free piece of music courtesy of BesleonStudios.com.